For today's writing assignment, I'm going to have you guys open up a word processing document, and I'm going to have you pause the video at certain points after I've given you a writing prompt or asked you a question. And I want you to write for about 5 minutes in response to the prompt or the question. I'm going to make the timeout sign with my hands every time that I want you to pause the video and write for about 5 minutes. You can do 5 minutes worth of writing even if you don't complete the task that I assigned. Just 5 minutes worth of writing is fine. Then after that I want you to draw a line of dashes or some other separators to visually distinguish the response you just gave from the next response, and then restart the video and watch from there. So we're going to start today by having you explain a particular situation. Here's the scenario. You're in a class, it's taught by a TA who's from a different country, who has a very, very strong accent when they speak English. And you have a great deal of difficulty understanding what's going on. You don't think you're doing well in the class as a result. That's the scenario. Your first writing task is that I want you to write a letter to the dean explaining this. Write a letter to the dean of the college explaining that you're in this class taught by this TA with a very strong accent, you're having trouble understanding, and you don't think you're doing well as a result. 5 minutes worth of writing a letter to the dean. And start. Okay, second thing I want you to do. Now I want you to write a second letter on the exact same scenario. The facts of the case have not changed at all. This time I want you to write a letter to your parents explaining the situation. 5 minutes worth of writing to your parents explaining about this TA with the accent. Ready, go. One third letter I'm going to have you write. Same exact scenario, facts of the case have not changed. Now I want you to write a Facebook message to a friend explaining the situation. Go. All right. Now that you've written these 3 letters, I want you to take a look at them and I want you to think about the differences between these 3 letters. You wrote 3 very different letters, but the facts of the case were exactly the same in each. I told you that nothing changed from the first to the second to the third letter except your audience. I told you to change the audience, and that's all I told you to do. And you instinctively changed a lot of other things in response to the change in audience. What I want you to do is, for the next 5 minutes, take a look at those 3 letters and write down all the differences that you see. All the things that you did in one letter that would not have been appropriate in either of the other 2 letters. I'm looking for words that you used, phrases that you used, the way that you said certain things. I'm looking for your purpose, the reason that you're writing, and I'm looking for the way that you're presenting yourself, the way that you're constructing your own ethos. Look for the differences in these 3 letters and give me specific examples of things that you were doing in one letter that would not have been appropriate in either of the other 2 letters. For the next 5 minutes, that's what I want you to do. Ready? Go. In a moment, I'm going to talk a little bit about what you just did and what I want you to take away from this exercise. And then at the end of this video, I want you to write for a couple minutes about what you're going to take away from this exercise, what you've learned here. What I want to talk to you about is something that linguists call style. You may have heard a writing teacher talk about style in the past. They were probably talking about the artistic use of language. Style to a linguist is that, but it's also much more than that. To a linguist, style is actually a particular language that's inside the English language. You can think of the English language as being actually not just one language, but a collection of languages. Each of these Sub-languages is what we call a style, and it's used in particular situations with particular audiences. And the different styles of the English language may have different vocabulary. They may have a lot of vocabulary in common. Maybe 80% of the words in the English language are in all or most of the styles. But there are other styles that only have certain words. Certain words may be in only a few styles. And that goes for certain grammatical rules too. For example, you wrote in a very formal style, kind of an academic style, when you were writing to the dean. You did this automatically without me prompting you to do it. You did this instinctively. You've learned it over the years. You wrote in a very different style and an informal style when you wrote your message on Facebook to your friend explaining the same situation. There's a particular style for text messaging. You may not have thought of it before, but there are rules. There are grammatical rules for text messaging, and text messaging has its own vocabulary that doesn't appear anywhere else. For example, LOL stands for laugh out loud on text messaging. You can use it in email, you can use it on Facebook, but you can't really use it out loud, and you certainly couldn't use it in a letter to the dean. You would never see it in a newspaper or a magazine. There are certain rules. You can't just pick any 3 words or any 4 words and put the first letters of them in and have people expect to understand you in a text message. If you don't know the rules of text messaging, you can't do it very well. A student of mine texted her mother that she failed a test, and her mother texted back LOL, thinking that it meant lots of love. But, of course, it was entirely inappropriate because she didn't understand the rules of the style of text messaging. You are already in command of several different styles in the English language. That's what I wanted to demonstrate to you by having you write these 3 different letters. You already know how to vary your style for the audience. You do this instinctively. What I want you to do from now on is to start thinking about it out loud. Well, not out loud, but explicitly. I want you to think about it and think of ways in which you may be doing it better. Some types of mistakes we make when we're writing are not grammatical mistakes. They're not mistakes of knowledge or fact. They're stylistic mistakes. If you write something in the wrong style, it ends up being funny. Unintentionally funny, people might laugh at you, or you could be intentionally funny this way. For those of you who read The Onion, 80% of what The Onion does is mixing of styles. That's the whole joke. They'll take something that doesn't belong in the journalistic style of the English language, and they will turn it into a news story. Or, for example, I want you to click on the link underneath this video in the post. This is a link to an Onion article by a character named Herbert Kornfeld, who's a pencil-necked dweeb. You can see from his photograph, he's the accountant at, I think, Mid-State Office Supply. And yet, the joke is that he writes in inner-city black gangster slang. It's really funny because it's so inappropriate and unexpected. It's a complete mismatch of styles. And therefore, if you're not aware of the differences in styles, you could also, unintentionally write something that's inappropriate or funny. If you're aware of styles and thinking about them, you can get better at using them, better at noticing the differences between the different kinds of language that you use. If you haven't already done so, I want you to go and check out that Onion article. And after the end of this video right now, I want you to write a brief summary of what you're going to take away from this little exercise and how it might be useful to you in this class or in other classes down the road.